It's no secret that the budget single tower coolers, like this one right here, the market itself has been super saturated as of late. They have a lot of different options coming out the last few years, and it's kind of jarring to try to figure out which cooler you should buy. And today, we're going to be taking a look at a budget option that, in my opinion, it checks a lot of boxes for me, and I think it'll do the same for you guys as well. So the cooler that I'm referencing is going to be the Vetroo V5. It's a pretty typical single tower cooler, coming in with a pretty typical price tag of just $35. Dimensionally, it should have absolutely no issues fitting in most of your guys' mid-tower or larger cases, and memory clearance shouldn't be an issue either, as the fan itself does not hover over any of the memory slots. Now, I don't want to spend a lot of time on the design for it, breaking down the design, because again, it's like every other single tower cooler. So I'm just going to go ahead and I'm going to really quickly recap this cooler for you. So this is going to be a cooler that comes in white or black. It's going to have 5 copper heat pipes, going to have a relatively dense fin array, and then it has an RGB fan on the front right here, which looks pretty vibrant when it's actually all lit up. The build quality of the tower is going to be okay, but it does feel a bit cheap to the touch. So when you're actually feeling this thing, it doesn't feel as nice as something like the Hyper 212 Black Edition or like the Be Quiet Shadow Rock 3, for example. The fan is usable, but certainly not my favorite fan out there. It looks okay, so like the actual aesthetics look pretty nice. It's pretty firm, it's pretty sturdy. It has like matching colored cables so that you can match the aesthetics. So the white version has the white cables, the black version has black cables, which is awesome. And then it also has like rubber padding in the corner to help with vibrations. But it's also a super loud fan. So loud to the point that I said super a ton of times just now in this video, but it's so loud that I would not want to use this cooler without modifying the fan curve, especially if I had like a Ryzen 3000 series chip or a 5000 series chips. We know that those chips are known temperature spikes because of boosting, so something like this would be super annoying super quickly. Here, just listen to the noise profile set up for you guys between 30% and 100% fan speed, so you guys can kind of get an idea of what I'm actually talking about. Now, noise profile aside, let's talk about the installation of this cooler. I feel like this is an area where Vetroo could have definitely done better, but I also think it's an area that they didn't lose any points, at least in my book. And comparing it to the L5, Vetroo's low profile cooler, I think this cooler, the installation process is a quadrillion, million, bajillion ton better than that of the L5. This one is not frustrating, it's easy to install, and I like the way you install it. So first of all, it's going to be compatible with most mainstream sockets, and it's going to include everything you need to install it besides like the AMD backplate, which actually comes with the AMD motherboards anyway, so you shouldn't need an extra one for those kind of boards. For both the AMD side and the Intel side of things, the process is basically going to be same, and so I'm just going to show you guys how to attach it to like an AM4 socket, and then all you have to do is, if you have an Intel socket, you'll have to basically follow the same instructions, but use the, again, Intel hardware instead. Okay, so the first thing you're going to need to do is attach the required brackets to the bottom of the CPU cooler. Then if you have an AMD based motherboard, go ahead and remove the black retainers that come attached to the motherboard. Now you're going to need that back plate, so don't remove the back plate, just keep it up against the back of your motherboard. Now add thermal paste to the CPU, remove the protective cover from the bottom of the cooler, and then attach the cooler to your motherboard by screwing it down into the back plate. Be sure to start all 4 screws and then tighten them down like in a crisscross pattern to ensure proper mounting pressure. Then you can go ahead and attach the RGB fan with the included fan clips, plug both the fan header as well as the RGB connector into the motherboard, and then that is the entire process. Again, the process is basically identical regardless of the platform you're using, and throughout it, I only had one thing I wanted to chat with you guys about. And it's actually not even about the process of installing it at all. It's actually about the ARGB connector. This cooler does not come with a SATA RGB controller, which is a big deal because if you don't have an ARGB header on your motherboard, you're not going to be able to use RGB at all on this cooler. So I think the controller, the SATA controller, should be in the box with this cooler. And to clarify my thought process so you guys understand why this is such a big deal to me, just picture yourself, you're planning or you're building a budget system. And if you're buying a budget CPU cooler, you're probably getting a budget motherboard. And as of right now in 2021, most budget motherboards do not come with ARGB headers on them. And so the fact that this fan has an ARGB connector on it instead of like, you know, one of the other RGB connectors, it just doesn't make a lot of sense to me. Anyway, let's move on to performance, what you guys actually want to know about, you know, the important stuff. And in regards to my test bench, first and foremost, I'm using the 3900X on the B450 Tomahawk Max motherboard while it's overclocked to 4.2 gigahertz at 1.25 volts. It's on an open air test bench, not in a case. And I focus on straight out of the box performance with the default fan curve, as well as performance with the fan noise normalized to 35 decibels. So in the straight out of the box testing, so with the default fan curve, I found that the V5 does really, really good job, and it hangs out with some of the best coolers out there, including like the Arctic Freezer 34, the Hyper 212 Black Edition, and it comes in with an average temperature of 70.5 degrees Celsius under load. It also maxed out at just 78.8 degrees Celsius in this test, but there is a downside here. This fan is super, super loud. It comes in at an ear-splitting 44 decibels of noise. That's really loud, really, really hard to deal with if you're sitting next to it. And for me, that's definitely a deal breaker. However, what fixes the deal breaker is the next test, the noise normalized test, because the noise normalized test shows us that the fan just gets super loud. And you can actually noise normalize it, so you can modify the fan curve and you can get a lot better results. So the cooler averaged a temperature of just 73 degrees Celsius under load, and it capped out at a temperature of just 83.3 degrees Celsius under load during the noise normalized testing. And this is only 1 degree worse than the average from the Arctic Freezer 34 Esports non-duo. And if you're familiar with that cooler, you probably know that that cooler is about $7 to $15 more than the V5 as of today, as of making this video. With the Vetroo coming in at like $35, performing as well as it is, it's hard to argue with the value on the Vetroo V5. And so, you know, pretty killer value overall in my eyes. Let me know what you guys think down in the comments below. Like, subscribe if you want more, and you'll see me, hopefully you'll see me in the next one.